Awesome. Okay, thank you. Well, welcome everyone. If you can come on in, find your seats here. I'm going to get started because we are on a pretty tight timeline. So I want to get us moving through the day here. So first of all, welcome everyone. I'm so excited to welcome you all here today to the Ontario Sport Community Summit, along with a group of pretty amazing colleagues. We've been working behind the scenes and dreaming about bringing a big group like you together today. And so I'm so pleased to see so many of you in the room. I do expect a few more people to kind of trickle in as we go. So we'll just welcome them in and kind of make space for them as we can. I also want to welcome the group who's joining us online. We've got another large group who's joining online. So welcome to everyone who's there. My name's Kyle Rich. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Sport Management at Brock University. Je m'appelle Kyle Rich, je suis professeur agrégé dans le département de l'administration du sport à l'Université Brock. Pour ceux qui aimeraient les sous-titres ou la traduction simultanée pour la réunion aujourd'hui, vous pouvez accéder sur la fonction sur la plateforme Zoom. So for anyone who would like subtitles or simultaneous translation, you can access that through the Zoom platform, clicking the little closed caption button in the bottom. Ani Kinawea, Kyle Indijnikas, Poasan and Dunjaba, Sikaranto Megwanidada. I'd like to begin today by acknowledging that we're gathering today on Treaty 13 lands, which are the territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Haudenosaunee, and the Huron-Wendat. Sikaranto and Kaniatario are home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. And for those of us joining online today, I encourage you to take a moment to acknowledge and reflect on the lands in which you're joining from, wherever you're joining from in the province or elsewhere. We're going to share a link in the chat that can support that if you need it. So in preparing these remarks, I was reflecting on how my earliest experiences in sport took place on the land in Northern Ontario. Things like hiking, camping, and outdoor skating were some of the formative sport experiences that I had that led me to think and care so much about how place shapes sport experiences and systems. Those activities were only possible for me because of the stewardship of the First Nations people who cared for that land for millennia. And so for that, I'm very grateful. I also reflected on how, despite how we're expecting a full room today, that these perspectives that are gathered here are not representative of all the perspectives of all the groups of people who are invested in the sports system and the role that it plays in our communities. In particular, we're largely and disproportionately joining from Southern Ontario and from communities and organizations that are well-resourced. So in moving forward with our discussions today, I would encourage everyone to reflect and cautiously recognize the perspectives that are and are not represented in our discussions today, and to work towards building relationships, offering support when we can, and including more of these perspectives in our work and our lives moving forward. Now, before we get started, I do have a few guests who are joining us to offer a few notes of welcome. So first up, it's my pleasure to introduce Deputy Minister of Sport of the Government of Ontario, Keith Palmer, who's joining us virtually, and he's going to offer a few words of welcome.
Thank you, Kyle, for that warm introduction. And thank you to the coordinators for me to open the summit. Just want to check that folks can hear me okay. Maybe a thumbs up from you, Kyle, would work. Awesome, thank you. It was just a few months ago that I was in Ottawa at the Federal Commission on Abuse in Sports Summit. So I know firsthand the planning, coordination, and let's be honest, the gallons of coffee it takes to make these events run across smoothly. So kudos to the team for pulling this together. I think we all understand the vital role that sport plays in Ontario, not just in helping people stay active and healthy, but in strengthening the very fabric of our communities. Sport is more than games and scoreboards. I think we know that. It's about belonging, resilience, and of course, opportunity. As someone who has lived and breathed sports my entire life, or at least very much involved in sports a few years ago, I will forever champion the merits of sport participation. Sport graduates individuals into higher education, leadership roles, professional play, business ownership, and leaders of worlds. It creates motivators, coaches, mentors. Positive impact of sports is undeniable, and I think, frankly, we all know that. And if we didn't believe that, it must be in this room or online today. The Ministry of Sport applauds the leadership and contributions of everyone here, both in person and the thousands of volunteers across Ontario who make sport possible, who are the heartbeat of this sector. The conversations you'll have today matter. They will spark ideas, challenge perspectives, and help shape the future of sport in Ontario. And let's be honest, if anyone can turn a good idea into game-changing results, it's probably going to be the bright minds in this room and online. Ontario has been actively engaged in national discussions, including the Future of Sport and Canada Commission's recent preliminary report. Many of you who are on the call today. So kudos to you for your work. I'm sure you'll see that played out in their narrative. A bit closer to home, the ministry has been focused on a number of key areas. Our community support recreation infrastructure grant has been something we've been really leaning into the past 6 months. Inclusive grassroots and Ontario after school programs are looking to enhance. Sport in Indigenous communities, Safe Sport Initiative, of course, our work with Rowan's Law and Lighting Up Ontario in the month of September around concussion and concussion safety. Ontario sports hosting programs, and of course, our involvement in the World Cup 2026 FIFA event, partnering with the City of Toronto next June of 2026. Through our CSIF grant, and I apologize for the acronym, that is our Community Sport and Infrastructure Grant, we've invested $200 million to support Ontario's growing communities. The new and revitalized facilities creating opportunities for folks who are involved in sports. And some of these buildings that we're supporting financially and creating are not just buildings, they're actually pads for dreams. Now, I can sit here and I can talk all day about the amount of work we're doing here in the province. Trust me, I can do that. But beyond that, I think what is really, really important, future sport is going in Ontario. I'd say after 18 months as a deputy minister on this file, is one thing that's crystal clear to me. We need to lead with innovation and inclusion moving forward. That means addressing financial and human resource challenges, increasing the social return on investment, and making sports safe or accessible for everyone. Another observation I see in my past little tenure is a critical need for a plan. Since sport became a standalone ministry just about 18 months ago, this work has remained and will continue to remain essential. Transition from a division to a ministry is lengthy. It takes a bit of time to do so. It involves a wide range of responsibilities required to fully establish a ministry. In the near future, begin to gradually shift from focusing primarily on administrative and business requirements to engage more deeply with both internal and external stakeholders, with our goals of enhancing and advancing the future of sport both horizontally and vertically. Saying this, we need to look beyond our borders, across the country, across the continent, and in some cases across the pond to find those best practices. What's happening in AI can support sport? What's happening in science that can enhance both physical and psychological performance? If we're not asking these questions and coming up with some answers, we're truly playing catch up. Sport in Ontario is an ecosystem. Schools, private programs, rep leagues, academies, pickup games. How we nurture the ecosystem from grassroots to elite is a vital part and is an essential health component in sport in the province of Ontario. Ontario is a powerhouse, we know that. We produce Olympians, professional athletes, and millions of participants. In fact, over 4 million Ontarians participate in sport all year. That's not just a number, that's an economic engine driving billions into our economy. We don't want fewer people in sport, we want more. Because every new participant is a healthier citizen, a stronger community member, a contributor to Ontario's prosperity. So as you dive into today's summit, I encourage you to learn more, share more, and imagine more. Future sport in Ontario will be shaped by conversations you're going to have today. I'm a firm believer in the good old days are right now. So let's seize this moment, not just for ourselves, but for those who will come after us, expecting that we make decisions to secure a brighter future in sport. Before I wrap, let me leave you with this. Sport has the power to change the world, to change lives, and to inspire. So in closing, I want to thank you all here today. Thank you for attending. Thank you for participating. Thank you for finding the time. I'd also like to thank my team back here at the province who has been doing a tremendous amount of work to really protect involved in sports who are most vulnerable and trying to prepare for the future of sport in the province of Ontario. Have a wonderful summit, everybody, and thank you for the invite.
Awesome. Thank you, Deputy Minister Palmer. I know you can't be with us for the rest of the day, but we really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to offer those words of welcome.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Kyle.
Now, an event like this doesn't come together without a whole lot of supportive organizations contributing, and I'm exceptionally grateful to the people here at Exhibition Place who supported this event and worked tirelessly with me to make it happen. So next up, I'm very pleased to invite Kelvin Seow, who's the Chief People and Strategy Officer at Exhibition Place, and he's going to give us a few words of welcome as well.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome to Exhibition Place. As Kyle has stated, my name is Kelvin Seow. I am the Chief People and Strategy Officer here. Exhibition Place, for those of you who don't know, is an agency of the City of Toronto. We're led by a council-appointed Board of Governors, and we are well over 100 years old. Established in 1879, Exhibition Place has a mandate to deliver trade shows, events, conferences, meetings, while maintaining the campus as a park space for the community. Community partnerships, which is a new venture for us, such as this event, are not just vital community activation for us at Exhibition Place, they are a core priority for the Board of Governors. Through collaboration, we aim to create inclusive and sustainable opportunities that empower our community. A little bit about Exhibition Place. Who has never been to Exhibition Place before? Anybody? Okay, not a lot. Okay, but I'll give you just a little bit of information. We're 192 acres. We host well over 2,000 events per year. Some of the big ones like CNE, the Royal that happened last week, not last year. Well, every year it happens. Caribbean Carnival, we host several marathons. The Honda Indy, unfortunately, they're moving on. And the big one next year is FIFA. We generate over 600 million in economic impact for the city and province. The building you're in is called the Intercare Center. It has 1 million contiguous square feet of convention and trade show floor space. That's a lot. You can do a lot of volleyball in some of the big halls we have here, and basketball. The automotive building has the largest ballroom in the city of Toronto, 44,260 square feet. The Raptors actually did an event over there, and they built an indoor basketball court. It was something to see. We also have 21 tenants on site, one of which is MLSE. They operate the OVO Center. Who's heard of the OVO Center? Yeah, a little team called the Raptors practice out of that location. Coca-Cola Coliseum. We have the Marlies, the Scepters, and the new Tempo playing out of the Coca-Cola Coliseum. And BMO Field. BMO Field, which will be where the FIFA will be hosted next year, as well as TFC and the Toronto Argonauts. We also have on site 22 historical buildings and an incredible art and cultural collection. On the west side of the grounds, we have the largest Indigenous art piece. So if you get a chance, it's probably about 5 minutes away at lunch break. You can take a look at it. It's called Mino Bimadzuin, and it was built and designed in concert and in partnership with the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Again, it is the largest Indigenous art piece in Eastern Canada. So today we're honored to help host the Community Sports Summit and in partnership with Brock, MLSE Launchpad, Ontario Sports Network, and the University of Toronto. This summit brings together you, leaders across Ontario, to share insights, highlights, innovations, and shape a roadmap for the future of sport and communities. Again, I'm honored. Exhibition Place is honored to host you today, and we hope to see you back at one of our events soon. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. For those of you coming in, come on in. Brian, Marcia, and Miles, we actually got seats with your names on them up here. You're VIP, so feel free to come on in. Thank you again so much. Really excited to be here at the X and to be here with you all today. So I know we're probably all excited to get down to the discussions that we have planned for today, but before I do, I want to cover a few just logistical pieces, as well as a few notes about this event, how it came to be, to really kind of set the stage for this today. For those of you here in the room, we'll kind of remind you about logistics throughout the day, but washrooms, if you go out, they're all the way down this side, so you turn left. Water fountain is on the right. They're opposite walks, so you got a bit of time. So make sure you give yourself time if you're walking out there either direction. For those of you who are, and for those of you who are joining us online, as I said before, we do have closed caption and simultaneous translation that's available. You can do that by clicking the CC button on the Zoom platform. I also want to recognize that our engagement and our discussions today is going to be facilitated through an online platform that's called Storms. Monica, my colleague, is going to explain that in a few minutes. You'll see the QR codes that are up around the room. It's also on the slides. In order to be able to let the people online and in person all contribute in the same way, we're going to be keeping everything through that platform. So watch for more info on that as it comes through, but just note that there's going to be kind of limited opportunity for questions in the room because we're going to try to keep them and capture them all through that system. So for those online, also this means that your Q&A box is only for you to talk to Tammy to troubleshoot and logistics and things like that. The Q&A box on Zoom won't end up in the Q&A on the room, so just make sure you recognize that. We'll be reminding you of that throughout the day as well. And if you do have any trouble online, you can reach out to Tammy at the email that she reached out to you at, and she'll be monitoring that throughout the day and helping you out if you need anything. So now, why this event? Why now? Why are we bringing everyone together here? This has been a culmination of kind of many things that have come together for me. So I want to kind of trace a little bit of the contours of the background of this and how we got here. So Ontario has not had a provincial sports strategy since Game On ended around 2018, and nor has there been a new intake or updated sport recognition policy that governs the eligibility for the Amateur Sport Fund. In the years since, the sport landscape has fundamentally changed. We now have safe sport legislation, new governance expectations, shifting demographics, and clear recommendations calling for system-wide reform. Operating under this decade-old framework leaves our sector exposed to policy safety and funding risks. Without a modern provincial plan or updated recognition model, the sport system is struggling to align with national standards, meet safe sport requirements, and respond to the emerging needs of athletes, clubs, and communities. And so in this time, the work that clubs are doing is getting increasingly complex, right? It's getting increasingly more difficult and complex to deliver sport in the province. We have really formal kind of structures that contribute to this. So things like Rowan's Law, updates to the Ontario Nonprofit Corporations Act, and then these broader system changes that are also taking place around this as well. Nationally, we're also at this pivotal time for sport. It's already been alluded to a few times, but this last summer we saw the endorsement and release of the 2025 to 2035 Canadian sport policy, which indicates some clear kind of shifts towards supporting accessibility and sport participation in all the regions across the province. And in the coming months, we'll see the final report of the Future of Sport Commission, which will make important acknowledgement of systemic issues related to abuse and maltreatment, but will also make much broader recommendations about how the sports system may be reformed in Canada. And then really importantly, in both this local and this broader context, we have very few opportunities to connect, discuss, and share from the broad range of actors who contribute to the sports system in Ontario. So spanning PSOs, community organizations, and then the academic colleagues who have joined us here as well. And I think that's a really important part of this, right? Is coming together to understand what each other are doing and how we can support each other. So during this time and during these changes, the focus of my research program was on provincial and territorial sport policy, something that I felt was a missing piece of the puzzle within the landscape of Canadian sport policy research. So in my work, we talk a lot about NSOs and national governments and a lot about community organizations and their roles. We don't talk nearly enough about the regional levels and the role that they play in that system. So following a data collection workshop where I was able to collect a group of leaders in Ontario, it became clear that there was an appetite for more opportunities like this to come together and have these discussions. In a shameless plug, if you want to learn more about that project, I have bookmarks at the front, and I'm happy to share that link with you as well. Tammy's going to share that link in the chat for those of you joining online. But you probably were on my website if you signed up for this event, so you can check that information out there. So as a result of these discussions, over the past several months, we've worked to coordinate an event where we can come together with actors from across the many different organizations who work in sport in Ontario to discuss the state of sport in the province and to learn from the innovators within our organizations and have some concerted discussion about what we would like to see collectively for sport in Ontario moving forward. So in a moment, I'm going to pass the mic over to my colleague, Monica, who's going to be the facilitator for the day. But before we do that, I just want to offer a few notes, a few things to prime us for these discussions and kind of set up these discussions. So, and of course, I'm missing my slides, but that's the link if you want to go to that page. So first, you may have noticed that we've already kind of defined the themes for our discussion today, and that in some ways that might limit the discussion to what we're going to be focused on. But I want to clarify here that these themes were developed by building on that research that I was talking about, the coalition building with the groups of leaders that we've been working on, and then also by engaging a key group of stakeholders in a workshop in the spring where we talked about some of these key ideas. We looked at what was happening in other places, and we kind of refined those themes and categories for our discussion today. So some of those people are in the room with us and online with us today. So I want to thank you for coming back and for that work to set up this discussion. I also want to recognize that there are many actors across the public, nonprofit, and commercial sectors who are all involved in sport. So as an organizing group, we believe that a thriving and robust sports system involves all of us working together, thinking creatively and collaboratively on how we can have a system that serves all people in Ontario. There are also many different contexts in which people participate in sport. So as we move through the conversations today, I encourage you to think about how broad-based sport participation, high performance or elite sport, as well as sport for development, or how sport can be used to generate non-sport outcomes or to contribute to non-sport outcomes, are reflected in our discussions, and then bring some of those ideas to those discussions today as well. Importantly, I want to stress that there are no bad questions and there are no bad perspectives. We want to have a range of things here, and we want to hear from everyone. I do want to recognize, though, that there's a lot of us in the room and there's a lot of us online, so not everybody will get to talk in every single session. We are going to be capturing that info online, so please input all your thoughts, input the ideas. We've got a system built out where we can upvote the kind of things we want to hear and talk about most, but all of it will be captured for us, and we'll be taking that with us and considering it moving forward as well. And Monica will explain a bit more about how that will look in a moment. Further, I want to recognize that some of you, particularly those joining online, may be joining us from outside of Ontario. So while I appreciate the enthusiasm and the interest in what's going on here, I'd like to just kind of acknowledge that we want all the perspectives in the discussion that's shared today to focus on the experiences in the sports system in Ontario. So if you're joining from somewhere else, that's wonderful, but make sure we're thinking about what's happening in Ontario so we can kind of put the guardrails up around this discussion. And so finally, I have to acknowledge the amazing work of the organizing committee who come together to put this event. So Anita, Jeremy, Marika, Dan, Debbie, Pam, Rich, and of course, Tammy, who is the glue who's held this whole thing together. She'll be running around here today. This wouldn't have been possible with all the work and support of all of you. If you see those people walking around today, give them a thank you, give them a shout out, and acknowledge that work. So before I pass it off now, I want to leave you just with a little anecdote. If you're like me, when you are planning an event or doing anything, it results in a series of sticky notes that get stuck all over your office with budgets and lists and to-do lists and things. And they kind of ebb and flow as they go. But this was something that I wrote on a sticky note in the summer at some point. It was kind of the ideas that I was thinking about that were like setting the how I was thinking about the event and the stuff that I wanted to pull forward. And it stayed stuck on my computer screen until this week. So I think that's important. It's something I wanted to share with all of you. So these three kind of principles I'm thinking about are evidence-based, innovative, and community-led. And I think just by looking at the group of us that are here today, all those things are already reflected, and I'm really excited to see the way that those come out. So to my colleagues from universities, the academic folks in the room, thank you for taking the time out of your semester to come here. For those in the room who are open to having those discussions and to working with academics, thank you for being open-minded and working that way. To the panelists who you're going to share from today, I want to recognize that you got invited because you're recognized as innovators by your peers. You're the people that we want to share and learn from. And so I want to celebrate that and make sure you recognize how special that is and how much we appreciate your perspectives. These are you folks up here in the front row. And then for everyone who's joining us, I really do think that it's going to take, I think as the minister alluded to, it's going to take all of us coming together around these things to make these changes. And so I really appreciate all of you joining us today to have these discussions and contribute to these as well. So with that, I think I've talked enough. I'm going to turn it over to Monica, who's going to be our facilitator for the day. Again, thank you all so much for joining us, and I look forward to the discussion and hearing how it goes today.
Thanks, Kyle. Can I grab the clicker? Welcome. Thank you. My name is Monica Lockie, and I'm with Chef Consulting, and we're here today as a privilege to be able to have this conversation with you and help navigate the conversations. Kevin, if we could just go back to the slides for a moment. Perfect. My friend Kevin in the back of house is doing amazing things. So again, our goal here today is to really provide opportunities for us to have those discussions about the future of sport in Ontario. We have amazing people in the room today, either on our panelists, online, or in the audience. So a ton of knowledge to be able to access and converse with and network with, which will be fantastic. And our goal by the end of the day is to really identify some possibilities, what could be some next steps that we could do moving forward. So those are no small task, but it's great to have, we've got the right people in the room to be able to do that, which is fantastic. Before we get started, I would like to just review a few agreements with you all, and for those of you online as well. One of the big things is just to be mindful of the time. We have a ton of information that we'd like to get through today, so we've got specific time slots allotted for each of the activities, and also for the breaks. When the breaks, will be very clear about when we're going to start, if we're behind or whatnot. So just to be mindful and respectful of those, to be back in the room or back online so that we can have everybody's attention for the next panelist or the next discussion. The other one is to be able to share the floor. So for those of you in the room, we will be having conversations with each other in small groups. Please ensure that everybody in your group has an opportunity to speak. And as we do that, we want to maintain our safe space. So we have this thing, big on hard on ideas and soft on people. We welcome different perspectives. We want to hear the different voices. We want to also preserve the value of the person. Okay. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to start with our panel discussions. There will be a break between each panel to be able to, as Kyle says, bathrooms are on the left and water is on the right. There will be a break between panel 2 and panel 3, and then we have lunch. And then the end of the day is really going to be the meat and potatoes. That's where we really get to reflect on all of the information that we've heard today, talk about what are some of the common themes, what's the common vision, common aspirations, and what are some possibilities that we could do moving forward as a group for the future of sport in Ontario. Okay. All right, so moving right along. So as we hear the information that the panelists are going to share with us today, we're going to use a critical reflection model called What, So What, Now What. So the what will be the panel discussion and any clarifying questions. So what's happening in the field? What are the trends? What's the data that's being presented to us? We will have an opportunity to provide clarifying questions to the panelists. It'll be limited to 10 minutes. And as Kyle indicated, we're going to use an online platform for that. So people in the room, people online will all be able to input their questions. There may be a plethora of questions, so you have the opportunity to vote on which questions you feel will be most important or most beneficial to ask within that 10-minute time slot. So when we get to the storms demonstration, I'll go through that with you, but I just want to throw it out here. You're going to have 100 points to use for that voting system, but it's 100 points for the day, not for the question. Okay, so if you use all your points in the first panel, you're going to have no points left over to vote for questions on panel 2 and 3. So make sure that you save some points. After the Q&A, we're going to do some small group discussions, and online you will be able to participate, but it'll be individually on the so what and now what. So reflecting on the information that we heard, why is this meaningful? How does it impact us? What impact does this have on us and our sport? And then the now what? What are some possibilities for next steps? Again, we're going to capture all of this information digitally and then be able to reflect on it on the end of the day. Okay, so you'll see this what, so what, now what throughout each of the panel processes. As the panel is getting organized there, I'd just like to introduce Anita, who is going to be our moderator today, Anita Kamel. She is the director with the Ontario Sports Network and also a senior director of the facilities development at Tennis Canada. So we welcome Anita to monitor the panel, and I'm going to pass it over to her.
All right. Thanks, Monica. Hi, everyone. Good morning. We're getting ready to go. We've got the power panel, so just in case you're wondering, we're up first. The others have to keep up now. All right, we're going to set the standard. First of all, welcome to all of our panelists, Peter, Joanne, and Marcia. I'm going to start with Peter, knowing that there's multiple decades of work that you've specifically done around sport policy, and you've watched sport policy in this province closely over those multiple decades. I'd like to ask you, Can you tell us what you've observed specifically in the Ontario sports sector in recent years? What kind of changes have you seen in recent years?
Thanks, Anita. My recent years may be a little different from your recent years. So I'm going to go back to around 2000, where I think it started to fall apart. Okay. On the one hand, since 2000, around 2000, I've seen a diminishing in education related to quality of life issues. So we saw, especially in public schools, art, music, libraries, physical education, intramural and interschool sports, outdoor education, all have diminished over that period of time. On the other hand, and not unconnected, there's been a massive shift in sport, exercise, and recreation to the nonprofit and to the private sectors. It's been abandoned by the public sector. The result has been a serious decline in participation among major sectors of the Ontario population. There are a couple of starting points for me in this, and certainly for me in my own research. I moved to Toronto, to University of Toronto in 1998, and set up the Center for Sports Policy Studies there. And it all began to happen around me. So the Common Sense Revolution government of Mike Harris, one of the first things that they did was to cut education budgets and increase teacher workloads. And as a consequence, all of the teachers who had been coaching sports and doing other extracurricular activities went on a work to rule. And for more than a year, there was very little inter-school sport. We ran a major forum which brought all of the parties together. And there was also a ministerial advisory group that advised the government to consider coaching as a workload item for teachers. The government ignored it, and I think we've seen a decline since then. At the same time, the government amalgamated boroughs in various cities. So Toronto became an amalgamation of the old city of Toronto and East York, North York, those kind of places. That amalgamated the recreation departments as well. And each of those recreation departments had different user fees. So the old city of Toronto had 0, all of the others had different rates. And so the decision was made to reach an average, to make an average of those. And so what we discovered from that was a direct relationship between cost and participation. So wherever the fee went up towards the average, there was a loss of registrations. Wherever the fee went down towards the average, there was an increase in reservations. So it was a linear relationship that we saw there. During that time also, there was certainly some interest from the Ministry of whatever it was called, Tourism, Culture, Recreation at that time, particularly with one staff member, John Udelman, who really showed an interest in a relationship with the data that could be provided by the Academy. And I think the big project was jointly with the Laidlaw Foundation, and we did the big project on social inclusion and recreation from that. And I think maybe some of you in here have used that monograph that came out from that. How long?
Yeah, it's like 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Let me just talk about, I'll get to the
We're going to
mid-time.
come back to you.
No, it's okay. We'll get to the mid-time. The Game On and the Pan Am Games were the next time that the government actually got involved in sport in a big way. And I was contracted to do a big report on girls and women's participation, which was, a major feature of Game On. telling it like it is with data resulted in a report that got shelved. It was embargoed by the government, although we ignored the embargo and sent the report out to a lot of people. But anyway, you
Okay.
can see talking about sport policy in Ontario has been difficult.
Thank you, Peter. And there's more to come. But as we look at a sport-specific example, Joanne, your organization has done a ton on governance changes across your organization and even across your kind of community, provincial, and national sport organizations. Specifically around your provincial sport championships, diversifying your revenue streams. Can you tell us a bit about those major changes that have taken place and maybe some of the successes and perhaps some of the outcomes?
Sure. We love to talk volleyball with our team for sure. And our Ontario championships really are our pride and joy. And it really touches every piece of our strategic plan. So I'm not sure at what point my video is going to get played, but let's just watch a little bit of some clips. And I don't know how much they're going
You
to
can show it now.
Great.
All right. That's how
Awesome.
much is getting played.
They're going to play this much. And always feel free to go to our YouTube channel. There's so many fun videos. But that was something around, they had a dream, and it was even, I've been at Ontario Volleyball for now 12 years, but it started before that, about bringing our sport together under one roof. And our 2020 strategic plan actually was specifically to get this building. So we actually worked on it for years, and we did get some contracts to bring in an Ontario Championships that was over 900 teams with 54 courts set up here in all of these halls. So that was something that it took a number of years, 10 years to get to that point. But we're back here in April, only because we did the contract back in 2017, because that's how busy it is to get in here. But we use convention centers around the province. So once we got this dream about this festival, the celebration, the social connection, you can see the emotion. We still get like chills watching videos like that. But that is where the investment was put in to have sport court, to have the resources, to be able to just even have the expertise to pull off a large event like that. But the results have been more than we could have imagined. From the participation of our sport in the last 10 years have gone from 600 teams across the province to this year will be closer to 1,400. And the majority of our membership is 14 to 16-year-old girls. So when we are in, it's almost 80% our membership is girls, and the 2/3 are in the 14 to 16-year-old. And when you have that women in sport, there's been some, industry standards of 1 in 3 girls dropping out. Ours is actually 1 in 10. So boys come in late and they actually stick around and keep growing. And our girls come in and not as many drop off. So it's another number that we're very careful about. Because we really utilize all of the long-term development. Volleyball's not easy to learn. Kids join later. We do modified games. We have tiering. There's a competition series that they play through the whole year, which is moving the teams up and down. You're not pegged at the beginning of the year to say, oh, you are this level. You earn your spot to get to Division 1, or you're a champion in Division 5. Like we now go, oh my gosh, we give out Division 5 banners. Like it's so exciting to be able to have that growth. And we do see exactly what you were talking about, Peter, about the schools they have volleyball courts, but they're not running volleyball teams. So our clubs, we really have to invest in our club system So when I say every piece of our strategic plan is touched by this, it is from our people pillar all the way through to our development and innovation, the development that we do, the operations excellence. So as I said, I could talk about this all day, but the piece around the impact of dreaming to be innovative with your competition and what beauty it can bring as far as to the families and to the athletes of them experiencing we're a team sport is beyond what we can imagine. And our staff fully embrace it they have athlete fun zones and celebrations and the festival piece, and kids were making their Taylor Swift beads. And it's just something that they don't take for granted when they get all excited about it. But now we actually do convention center events during the year because that's how much we're seeing the impact of being able to bring the community together and really celebrate sport.
Awesome. Thank you, Joanne. What a great concrete example of sport actually applying some governance changes and structural changes to see increased participation and impact. I'm going to move to Marcia. Marcia, you've been involved specifically in the Ottawa community, supporting community sport organizations. Can you tell us a bit about that work and the activities specifically that you work on to have impact in that community?
Sure. Thank you very much. So for those of you who don't know, about 73% of community sport is run and organized by volunteers. What that means is these people have day jobs, they have children at home, they've got a lot of other responsibilities, and they are at home trying to not only do those things, but also run a community sport organization. The lack of support for those organizations became very evident in Ottawa in about 2010, 2011. So a number of us got together to understand that if we could create a community sport council, how would that support all of our community organizations running sport? Unlike a lot of other sport councils across the country, many of them were formed because they either created a Hall of Fame or they created a sport awards. And those two programs were already very well run and very well entrenched in Ottawa. So we had a bit different mandate, which was how do we support those organizations and what is it that we could do to help them? So in about 2012, 2013, the Ottawa Sport Council was born. And we really had three specific parts of our mandate. One was to educate and to provide education to those community sport organizations about many different things. The next was to advocate to the city of Ottawa or to the province for community sport. And the last thing was to give. It was very important to us to be able to provide an opportunity for those who might not be able to play, equity seeking individuals to have the opportunity to be able to participate in sport in Ottawa. So those have always been the driving mandate of the Ottawa Sport Council. And out of those drives the activities that the Ottawa Sport Council has taken on. Was always very difficult to have somebody say, oh, what do you want to do in the next 5 years? Because our mandate was really driven by what our members needed. So for example, our mandate completely shifted during COVID because obviously nobody could have sport. So the biggest thing that we could do was figure out how to return to sport. So we created a return to sport playbook that our organizations could use in terms of, okay, so what do you do for ingress into a facility? What do you do for egress? What do you do, to reassure your parents that everything's going to be safe? Then when something like Rowan's Law came along, Rowan's Law was obviously very important across the province, but particularly important in Ottawa because Rowan Stringer was a young athlete from Ottawa. So a very heightened awareness of concussion protocol. So we created a concussion roadmap and a concussion video to teach parents and people on the sidelines what to do to recognize a concussion and what they should do about that. The last project that we took on that was a big one that was funded by Canadian Tire Jumpstart was we created the Ottawa Belonging Playbook, which was all about how do we make sport in Ottawa much more inclusive and make sure that everybody has the ability to participate.
Awesome. Thanks, Marcia. Peter, we're going to head back to you. You gave us a short snapshot from 2000 to 2018 on sport policy development across the province and maybe some of the recent impacts and changes. I'm going to ask from your perspective, though, sitting where you sit, what do you think is the biggest challenge facing the sector related to leadership and coordination right now?
Just one.
Well, you could have two.
I think the Ministry of Sport is inadequate and insignificant. And that's got nothing to do with the deputy minister or the staff or anything. It's just its status within government.
Thank you for qualifying that.
Status within government is just very weak. And so it functions a bit like Sport Canada. It hands out money, has unimplemented and unenforced policies, and it has no real statutory power. I tried to imagine a Sport Ontario on the order of Sport BC or Sask Sport or something like that, but I couldn't see it. It's too big a province for that. And so there's no real policy framework. There's no possibility of leading or coordinating a grossly fragmented system from the current Ministry of Sport. And there's no means of achieving what its rather sad new website claims, that it's going to be enhancing quality of life by promoting sustainable sport and recreation, fostering healthy, active communities, supporting athletic development, and driving economic growth. Well, it's not doing any of those things, really, is it? So, so perhaps most egregious to me is that there's no coordination or attempt to coordinate in government with other relevant ministries, especially education and health.
Okay. Thank you, Peter. It's a great perspective. And Joanne, we're going to go to the same question for you from a sport perspective as well. What do you think is the biggest challenge facing the sector right now?
Obviously, we could give our real life examples of exactly what you're talking about. But I don't want to go too much about that because I'll talk a little bit about some of the other things. But the Ministry of Education piece, when you say the schools, our clubs are having more and more problems getting the volleyball gyms, right? So this is, and so that cost goes up. We rely on the high schools to run our competition series. We run 800 tournaments during the year to lead to that Ontario Championships. So we are having some issues of being able to get into those facilities, which we're like, that doesn't make sense. Those kids play and live in that area and they go to school there, but the clubs can't get access to those gyms. So that's a concern because it is increasing and the costs have been increasing. So the cost to be able to access those facilities, even if they still can, is just getting bared by the families. So we're doing the best we can to keep the resources and the facilities and being able to run the programs. But that cost is getting passed onto the families. So we're very aware of how much sport is costing. And that is something that, there's a Jumpstart survey and the results of how much it costs for families, and that there's more and more that can't afford sport. And let's be real, volleyball shouldn't be that expensive, right? You need some knee pads and some shoes. So it's a concern. But with that, what we live in and what we can do within our being a recognized sport body is our funding hasn't changed at all. So that's where, when you get into that ministry piece, where are the things where we can get a little creative? We would like to be able to get a good return on investment of some of the monies that are put into sport. So our Ontario Championships, for example, doesn't qualify for a sport hosting grant. We generate over $40 million of economic impact, and that is continuing to grow in the communities that we go into, but we still can't access a sport hosting grant, which is something that I constantly say to them. So it's not anything new. Tyler has heard me say it many, many times. But that is something that we would just like to be able to say, the other PSOs that want to get to an Ontario Championships that creates resources to grow their sport, a sport hosting grant would also be very helpful for them. We're required to run the Ontario Championships. So I think there's a way where we're not connecting the dots of how we want to grow our resources within the sport. community and within the requirements of the provincial sport organizations. Yes, this happens all the
Yes.
time, even in the volleyball. And sometimes we get concerned because we're like, oh my gosh, is that bird going to get hit by the ball? Because when you walk into the warm up and there's 56 courts with 12 balls going on every single court during warm up, it is a sight to see. It's like popcorn balls going everywhere. You just said stand back and
Yeah.
go, I've never seen anything like it. So the birds we get a little concerned about. But yeah, it's
Thanks,
pretty,
Joanne.
pretty
This is
exciting.
great.
So that is something that I just wanted
Yeah.
to say with that requirements of the sport recognition.
Sure.
There's a challenge for sure.
For access, for sure. And Marcia, I'm going to ask you the same question. And
So-
it just demonstrates how inclusive we are in sport, that we invite birds and people to our summits. But from your perspective, the single largest challenge.
So I'd like to say too as well, I would like to reiterate the space to play, and not only the space, the fact that there's a lack of cohesion between where facilities might be in the school board and municipal facilities, but also the state of most municipal facilities within Canada, let alone Ontario. So in Ottawa, we just had a report that was done, which identified that 47% of aquatic facilities are in either fair, poor, or very poor condition. 23% of them are classified as very poor. 48% of sport fields are in fair, poor, or very condition, or very poor, and 59% of arenas. Most of our facilities in Ottawa were built as centennial projects in 1967. And we can't even host a provincial swim meet, let alone a national, let alone an international swim meet, because of the rules in Aquatics Canada. What's changed or the International Aquatics Organization in changes for, how deep the shallow end has to be to dive, we can no longer host anything. That is a story that goes across many, many municipalities within Canada. So it's not just access to facilities that our children should have access to in schools and things, it's also the municipal facilities. The second one, though, which I think is extraordinarily important, especially to community sport, is the reliance on volunteers. And during the pandemic, we saw a lot of people leave and they didn't come back. They didn't come back because they got their life back to a certain extent. They weren't taking their kids to sport all the time, and they kind of realized what balance was. And we lost a lot of volunteers, and we find that we aren't getting as many volunteers out. So in a lot of cases, we can't run as many programs. I think that's something that's particularly applicable to community sport. And it's something that, if we continue to download onto those volunteers the requirements, we're just going to lose more of them.
Great. Thank you, Marcia. This is a great panel discussion. I think we could spend all day with this panel, but we have amazing panelists. I'm going to finish us off with the same question for all three of you. And that is, and Peter, you've kind of led us in this direction, but I'm interested to see your final answer on what change would you like to see in the province?
I think I'm going to take two.
Okay, you're allowed.
The first one is really data-based, and that is Australia now has data. Some European countries have data to show that informal sport has more participants than organized formal sport. That's people doing sport for themselves, pickup, grassroots, recreational type of sport activities. And I would really like to see us make way and make space, and I'm speaking to the formal sport community in general here, but make way, make space for informal sport. And I think we'll see a massive increase in participation with that. Secondly, I'd like to see interministerial jurisdiction for sport. I'd like to see an agency to implement and enforce government policies with a primary focus on participation. I want to leave high performance to the federal government and stop trying to duplicate it at the provincial level. And I want to focus on schools. 93% of kids in Canada and in Ontario in this province are in public schools. That's where the majority of the action should be. And many of the other 7% of kids get regular PE, school sports and intramurals and outdoor recreation field trips, in addition to all of the various enrichment experiences provided by many of their parents. If it's good enough and important enough for the 7%, it should be good enough for all children.
Thank you, Peter. Joanne, what change would you like to see in the province?
I had a whole list. No, so I'm just gonna talk about one thing that would really have an impact, especially for as I'm in the recognizing that I'm one of the PSOs. The PSOs, the provincial sport organizations continue to grow, but our funding pot doesn't grow as we're not a very significant ministry, and it's not going to change. But I'm part of a group that has put together a proposal to the government about not getting more money from taxpayers, but trying to get apply a couple dollars to a professional sports ticket that goes into the amateur sport fund. So it's not about going and trying to get people that aren't interested in sport contributing to sport, but people that are interested in buying a $400 or $500 Maple Leafs ticket only gives $2 more to us amateur sport fund. So we did have an initial meeting with the ministry. We're really hoping that we get our next meeting with the minister. We say we're going to get it, and so we're hoping to continue that momentum of supporting this project that we just threw a name top up of. Hey, throw $2 on a professional sport ticket in Ontario, and the difference that could be made throughout our province would just be astounding, because that would more than double the funding that we have in our Ontario Amateur Sport Fund base, our base funding. Which is something that to think that all the requirements that we now have to do with Rowan's Law, Safe Sport, and all of the things along there, we would be able to have the resources to really do that at a good, high quality and help everyone enjoy sport.
Thanks, Joanne. Marcia, what change would you like to see?
I think there needs to be a recognition that sport is a community builder, and it really is the first point of entry into community for a new Canadian. And what we find is that we all talk about sport as a development tool. We all talk about sport as a community builder, but we don't give any support to those organizations that are doing it. So if you have new Canadians that want to play your sport, and one of my colleagues, Leo Doyle's here, and he represents basketball from Ontario, Ottawa, and does a great job in the areas that we have new Canadians. His organization provides free registration, provides a lot of logistical support to those families who might not have any ability to participate, but yet his organization gets absolutely no funding or no support in order to do that. So if we as a province really do want everybody to be included, we need to step up and we need to be able to provide that funding. And that funding really needs to go to that community level, because it's the community level that's providing that point of entry.
Great. Thanks, Marcia. I think I'm going to turn it over to Monica. But before I do, I just want to thank our three panelists. They were incredible. Peter, Joanne, and Marcia. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And thank you for your questions online. So panelists, I'm just going to ask you to stay there for a moment. We have a few questions. Peter, does the Future of the Sport in Canada Commission preliminary report recommendations give you hope that change is coming? In what way? And are we keeping the tipping point in how we approach performance versus participation? So for example, funding, framework, focus, policy, et cetera. I feel like that's more than one question, but
The first iteration of the Future of Sport Commission report doesn't give me any hope except for safe sport. I think it's good on safe sport. It's same old with regard to the sports system in Canada. And yeah, I've got a brief half written on the way, which I hope will be included. But yeah. And the second part?
Are we at a key tipping point in how we approach performance versus participation?
I hope so.
Thank you. Thank you. This one, can we talk more about what making space for the informal sport looks like? Who is making space? What resources should be directed and how? And what does this mean for municipal recreation? Who are already primary providers of informal sport? Marcia?
I think it's interesting that somebody thinks that the municipality is responsible for informal sport because we certainly don't see it in Ottawa. In many cases, our municipality is in competition with our clubs for running the same programs. I think in order to make sure that happens, there needs to be more system alignment, not just provincially along the vertical, but horizontally amongst, bringing a think tank together of people within a municipality to say who is doing what and making sure that there are division isn't the right word, but there is somebody covering off all different parts of the mandate. And in order to do that, if a community sport organization is providing a program that is more play-based, then maybe providing the municipal infrastructure in order for them to allow them to be more play-based, but that doesn't require a charge. So as I said, I don't see our municipality doing it. In order to do it, I think you need to bring people together across that horizontal level to put some sort of procedure in place that's going to achieve that.
Thank you. This one's for Joanne. How are you getting so many girls starting in the sport and how are you retaining them?
We love this question. Who doesn't want to go hang out with their friends all day? So a volleyball tournament, you are there for the day. It's not a show up at the rink and then leave. So the girls do get an opportunity to be social. It's we just embarked on a competition review that Sport for Life supported with us. Around we're addressing how are we going to still meet our capacity needs because we're outgrowing. There's now more than 200 girls teams that are 15. So we don't fit in the convention centers anymore. What do we do? Because we still want to bring them all together in the festival. So the one thing that we noted was the social connection. And the other piece is really paying attention to meaningful competition. So we track these numbers very close. We know we have some numbers that we look at and we have some ratios that we're trying to make sure, but it's back to that, the being mindful of whenever there's a competition, is it something that they're in? Like, do you have a chance? So our tiering system is very important. I talked just a bit about it, but we do track it and we do tweak it as we go. So when you create your different divisions and tiers, as soon as you can have a meaningful competition game, it's exciting. It doesn't matter what level the volleyball performance is, they're excited. I've walked around 13 girls playing and I'm like, just so you know, Dad, no one can hear you. The girls are yelling at this decibel. You're cheering for them. No one can hear you. So it's really exciting that they're able to really get involved in the game and we modify the game so they can have success at a young age. We don't actually have every play entered with a serve because that's pretty boring volleyball when you're not very good at it. So we actually have a modified game called Rally Ball. So there's a serve, but then there's a toss for each team. So there's lots of rallies, lots of learning of the game, and they get to have success. So, I mean, that's something where some of the girls can't actually serve the ball over the net to start, but that's not their whole game. So there's a lot of successes in volleyball that it's not just, one goal was scored. It's something that we take a lot of pride in to make sure that we're able to do that. The other piece that keeping some of the girls in is we do implement fair play rules at the younger ages and at the lower tiers.
Thank you. Thank you. We've got time for one, maybe two more. How do we make sport policy more political by demonstrating to those with political power that widespread equity access to sport is in the best interest of everyone? Who would like to answer this one? Oh, Peter's coming up.
There's an awful long answer to this, but
Cole's notes.
I think the connection with strong ministries like health and education would be a really important step because their voices count and they're heard all the time. And they, in many ways, already advocate for sport and physical activity. But it's a very minor part of their agenda. And I think that would probably be the first step is to get some more powerful voices involved.
Thank you. Okay, we have time for more. For Joanne, if you could only pick one or two, what would you say are the most important and effective changes that you've made that you feel have helped you grow and succeed? And maybe you've already alluded to that.
Yeah, and it is the festival. It's the celebration, the social connection that happens with having that culminating event. That would be definitely our key for our growth.
Okay, thank you. Got another one here for Dr. Donnelly. We've seen some success in trying to shift schools back into offering more sport. What advice do you have for those of us who are trying to revive school-based sport led by educators?
I think one of the real gaps in so many high schools is the lack of student-led sport. Under a kind of hands-off supervision by educators, but I think our student athletic councils should be really prominent in organizing intramural activity, more informal activities, and to have the space and the opportunity to do that. And that would be a real starting point in schools. I think we take too much away from students who are capable of doing so much of this themselves, and for whom it would be a valuable learning experience to organize these things. So yeah, get the students more involved.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's go, we're going to go to one more for Joanne and one more for Marcia. Joanne, how are you getting so many girls started in the sport and how are you retaining them? We've already sort of talked about that one, I think. Yes? Okay, so we're going to go to Marcia. To Marcia's point about new Canadians, 1 in 5 kids sport applications are newcomers looking for financial assistance in sport. Any further comments on that?
I'm not surprised. I think it goes back also to something that Peter said about getting the schools involved. So a few years ago, we actually ran sport programs in a ward in Ottawa that there are no community sport organizations, and there are no community sport organizations because if your community sport organization is run by volunteers, most of the parents within that ward are working 2 and 3 jobs. So there's absolutely no opportunity to run a community sport organization. So we ran a program in 3 different schools, an after school program that was ultimate in soccer. And we did it in conjunction with 2 of our community sport organizations. The most interesting thing we learned in the first school was if we didn't feed people, we couldn't get them to participate. So we were able to do this program with funding from the Ontario Foundation, and we had to pivot some of the money that we had to provide subs so that they could come, so they could actually participate. So if 1 in 5 of kids are applying for kids sport, my question would be who's not even applying because there's no organization within their specific geography that allows them to play. And you know, the registration fees, let alone if you have to get somewhere, you know, it really puts up a barrier to participation.